the county clerk and the county treasurer. I expect the county attorney, but I don't see him yet. Would like to say a couple of things on the front end. First of all, we have a,
Judge, I can't hear you. Let's see.
okay, let me see. I need to unmute something. Okay, is that better? Clerk and the county treasurer. Testing. Well, let's see, what else can we do? I'm not
Sir,
muted.
we can hear you.
Okay, so I'm transmitting on Zoom apparently and not here in the courtroom. So I will just speak up. We have a district, which I didn't want to do, but we have district court across the hall. So keep that in mind as you're coming and going. There's security out there. We have limited bathroom facilities, and we want to try and control noise levels as usual, but it's more important than ever now. We also have a complicated logistics on the agenda today. We'll have two different lawyers joining us via Zoom at two different times. So we may have to juggle some items around on the agenda to make all the schedules fit. But with that being said, we have a quorum, we have a meeting. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioner Williams, would you lead us in prayer?
Bow with me for a moment. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day that you have given us. Father, thank you for the rain you have bestowed upon our county. Father, we are a little bit, want a little bit more. I don't know how to say that, but we need some rain, Lord. Father, be with us today as we do the business of Mills County. Guide us and direct us in all our actions. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we have a review of an act on the minutes of February 14th, which are in the court's agenda. Has the court had the opportunity to review the minutes? And are there any questions or corrections or comments?
If nobody has any corrections, I move we approve them as presented.
Couple pops up. That's all. It's under the minutes on the number 2. It's on just a type there. That's all.
That's right. That's me, you.
Okay, so do we have a motion for approval with the corrections of typographical errors in section 2? I move approval of the minutes of February 14th, 2022, after correcting the typos in item number 2. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion from Judge Smith, second from Commissioner Guerin. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, audience with individuals. Nobody signed up to speak, so we'll pass that. Now, number 4, we have a public hearing. We published notice on this, a hearing on a proposed amendment to the tax abatement on Bluebonnet Wind Project, which the court approved in 2020. I move we recess this meeting of Commissioners Court to hold this public hearing, and then we will reconvene from recess following the public hearing. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the meeting of Commissioners Court is recessed. We are in a public hearing on the Bluebonnet Wind Power Project. Just to give everybody a quick overview, and we have representatives from Bluebonnet here to speak, and we have a microphone up here that you need to turn on if you want to talk. Here's the overview. This proposed abatement was submitted back in June of 2020. The court approved it after an initial public hearing And the approval was in November 24th of 2020. In that abatement, there was a minimum install megawattage requirement of 100 megawatts and a pilot payment in lieu of taxes to the county of $2,850 per megawatt per year for a total of 10 years, which, doing all the math, the total annual pilot was $285,000 a year to the county. The abatement included a construction start date of March 31, 2021, and a completion date of March 31, of December 31, 2022. The initial application anticipated 23 turbines being installed at 4.5 megawatts per turbine. What has come in as a requested amendment, and we received this in December of 21, is to reduce the minimum megawattage from 100 to 77. The turbine size stays the same. This reduces the number of abated turbines, which is the Bluebonnet project, from 23 to 17. So that's 6 fewer abated turbines. The pilot payment per megawatt has increased from $2,850 to $3,701. So the net result, the pilot payment to the annual payment to the county, remains the same as $285,000. So the number of megawatts drops, number of turbine drops, pilot payments stays the same. And then the other change has to do with the construction start date, which moved from March 31 to December 1st of 2021, and the completion date remains December 31st of 2022, so December of this year. Other things I'd like to point out that either weren't in the initial plan or were not known to us in the initial plan, in addition to the 23, now 17 abated turbines, there are an additional 15 turbines being installed in Mills County. And those turbines are unabated. And there are also some turbines being installed in Lampasas County. That's my overview of the requested amendment. And we're in a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak or ask questions?
Well,
Would you come? Yeah, sorry, we need to use the microphone
yeah,
for
no
the
worries.
people that not here.
How are you guys today?
Make sure it's flipped.
Yeah, I got it on.
You got it on, okay.
Well, I'm William Kelsey. I'm with Swift Current Energy. We're the developer of Bluebonnet. And so I think you got all the facts right, Judge Smith.
That's right.
So, I'm just here to answer questions if you guys have any. And, thank you for your time, and thanks for cooperating with us on the amendment.
I'd like to point out that this is a public hearing that we have to hold. We don't take action in the public hearing. After we've got input from the public, we will end the public hearing, go back into Commissioners Court regular session to take any action. I also like to point out that we have present on Zoom Jeff Allen of Wetzel, Carmichael, and Allen in Sweetwater, who has been our law firm advising us on on the whole abatement process. So he is available for discussion too. Are there any comments or questions from the public? Well, hearing none, we will conclude the public hearing. And we are now, reconvening from recess the meeting of Mills County Commissioners Court. Now, we've had the public hearing. We had no comments from the public. Now is the time for the court Are there questions or comments from the board? For either Mr. Kelsey, we'll call on Mr. Allen here in a minute, but if you have questions for him, he's available.
So are we doing
I'm,
number 6?
yeah, good. I'm sorry. Thank you, Commissioner Williams.
Or are you gonna do the road agreement?
Yeah, let's do the road agreement first. That's the way it's listed on the agenda. That did not require a public hearing. That's item 5 on the agenda. And the logic for doing it first is whether or not we do the abatement amendment, we have the road agreement to deal with. This, I would tell you, is our standard road use agreement. There, Commissioner Guerin has spent a lot of time with Swift Current et al. On the roads. There's a list in here of the roads that are going to be involved, the heavy haul routes. There's some maps, high level stuff. There's a $100,000 bond. Thing to note is our counterparty is a collective group. Castle Gap Wind Power is the overall project. The Bluebonnet Wind Power is the abated project. That's the one we're going to be abating or have abated and may amend. And Lantana, which is the unabated portion of the project. And that includes both Mills and Lampasas County, correct?
Correct.
So there's that twist that we don't usually see. There is an agreement in here for dust control within 500 feet of a residence. And there is an agreement to, besides repairing any damage to the roads, to install or 4 inches of topping to the heavy haul routes. And those are defined by the end of the work. So we should end up with roads being maintained during the project and in good shape at the end of the project. Mr. Allen, is there anything you would like to add?
Not with respect to that road use agreement. I think y'all did a pretty good job. It's close to form of what we normally do with the bond and all in there. Straightforward. Like I said, it covers what we generally would expect it to cover if we were preparing it ourselves.
Thank you.
Jed, are you fine with it?
The only thing I see on here that's different than the one we just finished with Engie, they're only going to do is cover the part of the roads that they're using. Where they did the whole road when they got through, they went ahead and did the whole road. That's the main thing I've noticed is different. If they use a heavy haul route for 2/10 of a mile, they're going to resurface 2/10 of a mile instead of a couple, 2 or 3 miles.
That's the same road that the mill people use too, isn't it? One of them coming out of Center City.
Yeah.
That's that main road.
Yeah, that's what I mean. What's happened, and I talked to a contractor a couple of days ago, Scott. The projected taking that bridge out is June, July. And it's going to be out for 5 months.
We understand that.
So we're going to have to go around.
That's the Bennett Creek Bridge on 1047.
Yes, sir. And the guy I talked to, he was one of the companies bidding it. And he said they put the monkey on their back. They're telling them they got to work 6 days a week instead of the normal 5. And they put a 4-month deal on it. He said he didn't think there's any way they could build it in 4 months.
That's why 332 is going to be.
Yes, sir. That's going to be our y'all's only route in and out. I'm
What did he
sorry.
just say? 332?
Yes, 332 is going to be our main route.
Okay. Just so it's on the microphone.
That's all I've got.
Other comments or questions on the road use agreement?
Well, I make a motion that we approve the Castle Gap Road Use Agreement.
We have a motion from Commissioner Williams to approve the Castle Gap
I'll
road
second.
use agreement, a second from Commissioner Gearin. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have approved that. Now, Commissioner Williams, I'm where I thought I was on the agenda. This is to consider and act on the amendment to the December 2nd, 2020 Blue Bonnet Wind Power Tax Abatement Agreement. This is the public hearing we just had. Summary of it, which I presented at the beginning of the hearing. Might note that in the amendment, there's also the Exhibit D, which we had came in late on another wind project we did. And here is the Exhibit D that actually shows the location and type of the improvements, which is one of the requirements under the abatement agreement. So any questions from or comments from the court?
I move we approve the amendment for the tax abatement.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Gearin to approve the amendment to the tax abatement agreement for Blue Bonnet Wind Power. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner Williams. Before we vote, let me ask our attorney, Mr. Allen, if he has any comments for us.
Judge, no, nothing that I think you covered it well in your introduction. The main difference is that change of construction date, which we anticipated with various things going on in the world. We're in a better position than we anticipated back when we did this a couple of years ago with the non-abated turbines. So financially, it's probably we're in a stronger situation. So I'm comfortable with the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On F, it still says $2,850 per megawatt. And then on number 2 on abatement, is that the 2,850 goes to 3701?
The original, you're reading number F?
Number F.
Yeah. Section 8B, original abatement agreement agrees to make payment of little tax of 2,850, which resulted, that's true. That's the minimum agreement. Let me see, there should
And
be,
on number 2.
yeah, then go to number 2 on the second page, and the 2,850 is deleted and it becomes 3701.
Yeah, okay. That's all I understand.
I think the difference between the two is at the front of the agreement, those are the recitals referring to the original agreement, and then we change it down below.
Anything else, Mr. Commissioner Parton? It was good catch. There no other comments or questions. Let's vote on the seconded amendment. All in favor of the amendment to the tax abatement agreement for Blue Bonnet Wind Power LLC, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
And
Thank you,
you'll need to sign that one on your page.
Yeah.
Yes, it's in the red folder.
No, I haven't signed it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you pass it down here, please, Commissioner White? Okay. Then we'll have the clerk sign it. We'll need to record it and we will send it to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. You're welcome to watch the rest of Mills County in action, but I understand you have other things to do. If you feel free to leave.
All right. Thank you, Judge. Y'all have a good day. We appreciate it.
Okay, number 7, consider an act on the joint elections agreement with Hamilton ISD. Ms. Scott, this is your item.
Yes, it is my item and I don't have it yet. Hamilton emailed me and said they wanted to participate with us on the May 7th election. I don't have the agreement back from them yet. You'll see this back on your next agenda.
Okay, so that under the time clock, we're not forced to act today.
No, we already have the order in place. We're going to amend the order. We'll add Hamilton to it. But I don't have anything firm in writing from them, so I don't want to execute the agreement until I do have something in writing.
And they will pay some portion of our election
Correct.
cost. Okay.
So that's table.
Is there a motion? Is that a motion to table,
I make a
Commissioner? Lee?
motion to table the elections, joint elections agreement with Hamilton ISD.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Now, we're down to number 8. This is the consider an act on the takings impact assessment for the proposed subdivision ordinance. I'd like to introduce, you see on the Zoom screen, it says Knight Law Firm. That's Barbara Wells. She is the successor partner assigned to us, replacing Jeff Ullman, who worked with us on the initial agreement. The process, and this is all about process, is that you cannot adopt a subdivision ordinance without a public hearing. To have the public hearing, you have to advertise that you have, first you have to advertise 30 days in advance, but part of the required advertisement is that the governing body, in this case, Commissioners Court, has made a assessment and finding with regard to that whether or not the ordinance constitutes a taking. So what's on the, and we have done this once before. Back in June, we had a subdivision ordinance presented. We went through the takings assessment with Mr. Ullman. We determined that no takings was occurred, and takings is defined a number of ways, and the law firm will help us address that. But one thing was physically taking the property, and another thing was the economic impact, which reduced the value of the property by, I believe, 25% or more. So those were the high-level criteria, and we determined that no taking had occurred. Then, as you recall, we appointed a Citizens Advisory Committee that ran for several months, made many changes in that initial ordinance, which I would characterize, as weakening. They were generally removing or weakening things that were already in it. We've ended up with a good ordinance from the Citizens Committee, but it is the initial hope was that, okay, we made the assessment, we revised the ordinance, we loosened the ordinance, and that we didn't need not do another assessment. Well, passage of time and the fact that the ordinance did change substantially, and including number of pages and forms. So we're back to needing to do the takings assessment. The first thing in your agenda package, I'll put it here on purpose, is a proposed public notice to run in the Eagle. We have to, before we can have a hearing and adopt this notice, adopt this ordinance, we have to run a notice. And this is what the notice needs to say. And it references a takings assessment which is on the agenda today. And the takings assessment then has to be on the website and available for the public to look at. And then we have the public hearing. And the way our meetings lay out, the publication schedule of a local newspaper, that's going to be approximately nothing. It'll be exactly April 14th, which is a Monday, slightly more than 30 days after when this runs in Wednesday's Eagle. Now, the deadline for Wednesday's Eagle is noon today. So that's why it's already drafted in here for you to see. Now, if we, that's all the logistical background. The takings impact starts behind that and runs for a large number of pages. And Barbara, let me get out of the way and turn this over to you if there's things you would like to say or guidance you would like to give us as we go through this assessment.
Certainly. Thank you, Judge. The reason it's not so much that you did anything wrong or did anything different with your management of your subdivision ordinance. And I understood and reviewed the subdivision ordinance as part of the process here. Some of it is simply bringing the form up to date with what is asked from, and I know it was only like 6-7 months ago that Jeff had performed that. I am perhaps a little more belts and suspenders. I want to make sure that I have outlined in the takings impact assessment the things that the AG actually looked at and has required us to look at, so that we can, when you're putting it out there, you can actually point to and say, yes, this is exactly what the takings impact assessment from the AG asks us to do. And this is in fact what we have done. And so that's what a large portion of what is actually in the takings impact assessment, the modifications. And what it is it's simply, perhaps a regurgitation of what the AG has said. These are the things you need to, this is what a takings is. This is what you have to look at. This is what we need to do as we go through this process. And so I wanted to make sure that when anybody looks at this takings, that this is, you can actually point to and say, see, we actually did look at what was required in, from the Constitution or what's in the Texas Government Code 2007. These are the actual things that we looked at, not just alluding to them, but we did look at them. And so that is exactly what I went through and gave you, as I said, probably more of a belts and suspenders rather than just alluding to the fact that you have reviewed this and it meets the criteria. So I did take a very thorough look at your revised subdivision ordinance. I found nothing in it that I believe amounted to a takings or could potentially be asserted to be a takings. All of it was in proper format with what you are allowed to do in subdividing land that is in your area. And I went through the questions and the exemptions and things like that for the analysis and answered those. Again, those are laid out within the takings assessment, and arrived at the conclusion that we at our firm still do not believe that this amounts to a takings. So that is the long and the short of what I did. It wasn't in any way a derision of what Jeff had done before. It was simply a more robust way of putting this so that we could, literally, I always like to be able to cite to sections and cite to various things so that if somebody says, well, did you really look at this? You can actually look at it and say, yes. I mean, see, they cited to this and they cited to that. We would have to be able to defend this. And I felt that this was the best way to do that. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to walk the court for the record through this. If you start on, I think the way to do it is start on page 7, Roman numeral 2. It's whether or not it's required. And yes, what we're proposing to do is adopt an ordinance that regulates land use. I think there's no question on that. Then number 3 is the potential effect on private property. And the first question is, does this physically take somebody's property? And the answer is no, it physically doesn't. It physically doesn't do anything. And then number 2, does the action restrict a right, either temporarily or partially? And I believe the answer to this is no. Now, you might say, well, wait a minute, we're going to require platting if you do this. So I want to point out, the county's not doing that. The county is just pointing to the state laws that require platting. They set the requirements for when you do it. They set when the exceptions are. So it's in our ordinance, but that's there whether we adopt the ordinance or not. What our ordinance does is define road entrances, minimum street sizes, flood control issues, and not much else. So then you get down to number 4, which is exemptions. And the finding here is that the proposed regulations are exempt from the Real Rights Preservation Act, as we are not taking physical property or restricting a use. And then the next one looks like it's also number 4, proposed burdens and benefits. And yes, I mean, somebody's going to have to do some engineering. They'll have to hire a surveyor. You typically have to do that anyway when you sell land that's not platted. You're going to have the cost of an engineer. You're going to have the cost of a plat. So there is costs that are imposed by this. But if you look at the cumulative impact on value, which is number 6, is it 25% or more? Well, here's the way I look at that. Let's just say the market, just do simple math. Let's say the market value of land's $5,000 an acre, the land that's typically subdivided. And so 25% of that would be $1,250 an acre. If these are 10-acre lots, which is typical of the subdivisions we've seen, that's $12,500 of impact per lot. If it's a 10-lot subdivision, which is way smaller than what we've seen, that's $125,000 of cost, and that is far in excess of what it would cost to have the survey and the engineer and the plat prepared. So that's my analysis of how you come up with, we're nowhere near a 20, we are imposing a cost, but it's not, doesn't meet the 25% test. And based on that, the conclusion at the bottom of the page is that, yes, this is a covered action. It has no impact on private property. The proposed action's exempt because it's legal land regulation in the best interest of the community and in compliance with state law. And we've looked at it for impact on personal property, and it's less than 25%. And Ms. Wells, did I misstate anything, or would you care to elaborate?
I'll just touch a little bit more on the potential impact on value. Along with what the costs are actually assessed, does the action, by requiring some sort of subdivision or anything like that, does that reduce the market value of any parcel of private real property by 25% or more? And your usage of in other words, if somebody comes to you and says, we want to do some sort of rural subdivision, that is their choice. There's nothing that says that you have to. There's nothing that says that there's any reason that they can't continue to use the property as they see fit in its current location and its current condition. So the market value of the property it remains the same unless, and if they're coming to you to actually ask for some sort of subdivision, it doesn't restrict the use of it remaining that way. And in fact, it's probably going to be enhanced in some respects by allowing it to be subdivided. So, and actually, ultimately sold to others and whatnot. But there's not, by your action here, you are not requiring anybody to do anything with their current use of their property. If they come to you and ask you to assist in subdividing, even that does not reduce the market value of any parcel by 25% or more. So even when you're being asked to assist in things like drainage and runoff and floodplain and all of that sort of thing, those are not a lot of those are exemptions, and it doesn't impose an impact on the market value of the parcels of real property of 25% or more. So that's the other part I would add to that. And not only do you have your, what are we asking and the costs that we're asking for subdividing and everything, but then we actually look at the market value, and we're just simply not finding that. So.
Thank you. Are any questions? Well,
I'd like your explanation. I wrote that down.
okay. I would then move approval of the taking impact assessment of the proposed subdivision ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion, second from Commissioner Wright. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, we will then run the notice in the Eagle. We'll put the assessment on the website. The notice will run in the Eagle this week, and we will hold a public hearing on the proposed ordinance from the Citizens Committee on the 14th of April. We've had that proposed ordinance on our website as proposed since January. So it's already out there for people to see, but we'll remind them. And then we'll have the public hearing and can then be in a position to take action. Thank you, Ms. Wells. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you, man.
When was that public hearing date again? I'm sorry.
14th of April. Hopefully that's a Monday. Okay, number 9, consider an act on participating in the Texas Association of Counties Cybersecurity Training Program. This is something we've done every year since this law came into effect. We're required that for employees and elected officials that use a computer, use a county computer, or have access to the county systems, complete an annual cybersecurity training. TAC offers that training free. I'm sure other vendors offer it also. TAC, to offer it to our county, requires approval by the county commissioners, and this is the proposal they've asked. So we're agreeing that we will use a free cybersecurity course offered by TAC. Any discussion, questions on this?
I think it says if you 25% of your job is computer related.
Right. So I
Yeah.
think that
But if you have the county email, you have to do it too.
Yeah.
Not just if it's 25%, because you get county email, which is on the tax server. If I'm not mistaken, that's how Trina explained it couple of years ago.
Right.
So if we all have county emails, you're gonna have to do it.
Yeah, I think what this primarily says is that road hands and maybe some law enforcement staff do not have to comply with this.
Right.
But otherwise we do.
Those kind of help there.
He needs all that big, yeah.
Yeah,
I make a motion that we participate in the Texas Association of County Cyber Security Training Program.
okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Williams,
I'll say
a
this.
second from Commissioner Guerin. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, number 10, discuss EMS dispatching. I wanted to bring the court up to date on that. This is not in a black hole, and wanted to tell you what I've been doing. The Council of Governments provides the 911 service for the 7 counties in the region. And I want to share with the court some information from them. First of all, a one-button transfer of a 911 call with Mills County existing PSAP equipment is feasible fairly easily. Actually, they tell me they could actually handle as many as 2 transfer buttons. So that can be done. If the call is transferred to another PSAP, then the entire data stream transfers with the call. The data stream is obviously the voice, but it's also the mapping data, the computer location data, the ID code of what phone's calling you. So if you transfer it, one button transfer to another PSAP, that other PSAP's looking at the same information our guys would be looking at here. If, however, you transfer it to a non-PSAP, then all they get is the voice part of the call. The mapping data, the location, the caller ID, all that number stays here locally. So that was interesting, and I wanted y'all to know that. The information is still available to our local PSAP, but that means if wherever we've transferred it to needs to confirm a location or on a map or who's really calling or whose phone is this, that's going to be a call back and forth with our dispatch to get that information, because it will have stayed on our computers. There's a meeting was held last week with a thing called American Medical Response, AMR, that operates, among other things, a for-profit EMS dispatch services. They have a data center in Fort Worth. Commissioner Park and I met with them for 30 minutes or an hour one afternoon. We've been invited to come up and see their center. I've got a little bit of preliminary information from them over the weekend. Everybody, and everybody means them, AMR and other counties, has been vague on the front end cost. There's 2 types of costs that are going to be involved in this. There's the initial hardware of getting things set up on the front, which could include buying new transmitters, coding, decoding devices, lines, tower rental, things like that. And those costs as of yet are still unknown. But then there's the ongoing operating cost. And we do have some color on that I wanted to share. AMR has estimated, and I want to stress this is estimated because they want to come down and see our system and look at call volume. They're based on me telling them that it's averaging about 60 calls a month, although we had a spike to just over 90 last month and don't know yet if that's a trend or an anomaly. They estimate $30 per dispatched call would be their charge to Mills County, plus the front end cost, plus additional cost if we want reporting. Right now we get a report, you see a EMS report in the commissioner's package once a month. And that would still come from EMS, but if we wanted a separate report from dispatching, right now, the sheriff's department gives us one report that shows all the calls. So they will probably drop off EMS if they quit doing that. And we would be buying another report from this service. But anyway, throwing out the upfront cost and the reporting, it's $30 per call. What that cost does is dispatches the ambulance. They stay on the line with the caller. And this is something that we're not, I don't believe we're licensed to do right now. And actually gives them advice until the responders get there. You have to have a type of licensing to do this. There's a checklist. Oh, you're having a baby. Here's what you need to do. Oh, you broke your leg. Here's what you need to do. Oh, you're bleeding to death. Here's what you need to do. So it's kind of pre-response first aid coaching over the phone. So it includes that. It includes any follow-up dispatching of additional services or air assets. And let's see what else. That's what's included in it. So, I mean, you can do the math, $30 a month times 60 calls or 90 calls. It's the big issue is what's the front end cost. And the issues on the front end cost, and this has come up with Hamilton and with San Saba as well as AMR, is do we share an existing frequency? And if we do, that only requires a new transmitter at the dispatch location and an encoder decoder device if radio over IP is used to move the data stream from the answering point to our tower. Another thing is that we have some underutilized frequencies that are already equipped on that tower that we could either negotiate to take over or share the use of them. Or we do another frequency. That's where the big front end costs are. New transmitter, new repeater, possibly new frequency, although the county holds the frequency licenses and there are about 7 frequencies licensed to Mills County. So we may have a frequency, but we don't have the hardware except on 2 of them. And then another thing that's being looked at by Hamilton Hospital District is satellite radio. Instead of relying on traditional radio from a tower, it would be up and downlink satellite from a call center to each responder. So that's what we know so far, continuing to try and get more information. I don't know what date we're working against. Recall the sheriff initially said 120 days he was going to discontinue dispatching, and that was back early January. I want to say the 4th or the 5th. Since then, I believe he's discontinued that for a while the hospital district was, while he submitted a proposal to the hospital district. He then told me a while back that hospital district had not responded to his proposal. So his 120 days was running again. But when I asked for what that means in terms of, okay, what's the date? He was going to get back to me. So I don't know. There was a hiatus in that 120 days, which initially would have been sometime in May, but I no longer know what the date is, but we're probably later May or June type dates. That's where we are. Any questions or suggestions from the court?
Well, if we go through with AMR, say, for instance, we'll decrease the sheriff's budget in order to help offset the cost of this additionally.
Well, my approach would be whatever the cost of any of these solutions are. I mean, we don't have the cost now.
Right.
So if whatever the incremental cost ends up being, we need to go back to the sheriff's budget. Say, okay, we've paid, the budget includes EMS dispatching. We're going to get charged some other number to do EMS dispatching. He needs to show us where it's going to come out of what he's got. but I don't have that number.
Yes, I understand that. I
Yeah.
understand that. Well, this AMR, for what it's worth, sounds interesting with the on the phone advice as to helping yourself or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, what I've learned from like Hamilton, whatever it's called, Emergency Communication Center,
Right.
they plan to have their dispatchers licensed to do that. But they don't right now.
Right,
It's
right.
just training protocols and
Yes, sir.
putting things in place. And for all I know, our dispatchers may be being trained to do that. But the problem, two things on AMR, that obviously they are further away than Hamilton or San Saba. So the local knowledge of the dispatchers are going to be even less
Right.
than some going nearby out of county. And AMR is not a PSAP. Hamilton and San Saba are.
Right.
So they will only get the voice transfer. They will not get all the mapping data and other data. So those are we got to look at everything, and
Yes.
they're everything. The pricing's attractive. They get their own volume, I'm sure.
You mentioned satellite. How does that work with bad weather and stuff? If they dispatch that, do you have any idea?
At this point, I don't know, although I do know our military uses it. So it just depends on the type of equipment.
Do we get to use the military satellite then?
Probably not. If it depends on the Russians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there any other meetings that are on the agenda that are coming
Well-
that you and Dale might have? Or no?
AMR has invited Dale and I to go look at their dispatch center. I don't, but if we end up leading into that route, we need to go do that. But I think at this point, it's premature. The next thing I think that needs to happen is in a meeting, it's trying to nail down the front end cost.
The cost.
Yeah, what frequency, what radio equipment we need, what the availability is.
Is there somebody that can help us with that, or do we need to look at an engineer or something? Is
Well,
that going to be a cost in this?
I'm talking to two of our local experts, Alan Brown and Benny Owen are both trying to coach me on this and have been offered to help. At some point, at the preliminary stage, that's probably good enough. Benny thinks we can make do with something we already have. But if we start having to design something new, then you're right, we're going to end up being with Motorola's the standard in the industry, but there may be others, but we're going to have to get an expert to come in and help us. And that has a cost. I see that the sheriff's joined us. We were going through background on options we're looking at on EMS. And one thing I stated was that I was unclear on where we were on the timeline for the cessation of dispatching under the existing plan.
I'm getting it all, so I have to go back and look at it.
Any rough recollection?
It'll be less than 25.
I
Probably, I'm gonna say maybe
Oh.
7. I heard you discussing the point about losing data as far as the mapping and stuff. The maps never have worked. All you get is a ping from the cell phone tower. It just tells you which tower the 911 call hit. It does not pinpoint your location. And it's been like that forever. It shows up a map of a cell phone tower. That's all you get. It does not give your exact location. Where you're at.
Yeah, I understand that. It depends on which cell phone server you provide as to how many, or not you provide, but who the carrier is. Yeah, but there's,
Still not accurate.
yeah, I mean, there's also a GIS mapping system that's out there that shows where the address is. That That's the type of information in MAP that wouldn't transfer to a non-PSAP push button transfer. And any other questions from the board?
I don't have any.
Okay, well, that's the report on that. Now we're down to accounts payable.
No, yeah,
Any, I moved this to the back because we had lawyers we were paying by the hour at the front end. They didn't even listen to all this. Any questions on the account or comments on the accounts payable?
I move we approve them as presented. If nobody has a correction.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the accounts payable. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
County Extension Agent report. This is one that I think the stock show just slipped it out of our cycle at the first of the month. It's in your package. List of the miles covered in the month of January and major events for February, which are San Angelo and San Antonio stock shows. I'd move we accept
Also,
the extension report. Second from Commissioner Gearin. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are down to commissioners requesting reports. Commissioner Wright.
We've been cutting brush, working on equipment. I like to make known to the public that we've been picking up a lot of trash too here lately. People have been dumping on the county right of ways. It takes a lot of time to do that sometimes.
Tires or other stuff?
Tires, barrels, sofas, TVs. So
Any specific county roads that are a problem?
that 505, 100, 427. So we've had several that we've been on it. But I guess 100 goes to Dale pretty quick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's short.
That's all I have.
she don't, they're not dumping anything on the old dump ground road.
That's a violation. I mean, to the extent you guys can figure out who did it.
That's the trouble,
Well,
figuring out who did it.
I go through the trash bags a lot of times hoping to find
Mhm.
something that has a name or address. If it does, I turn it over to the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
I've been taking it to the dumpster and putting it in the dumpster here. That's it, instead of putting it on our lot out in the precinct. Barrel metal stuff I put out the precinct, so we eventually take it off and sell it.
Okay.
It's been a problem.
Commissioner Gearin.
We've been cutting brush. We'll bring the machine back to you tomorrow. We got it redone.
Good.
It's running again. Quieter than it ever has been.
Well, good.
I don't know what they did, but, and it's working real good. So.
You put new bearings in it, I put a new.
No, yeah,
motor on,
we
so
put
that
new bearings in there all the way, but it's quiet. You barely can hear that thing run.
Good.
It's always been noisy, you know, that's whining and everything. And, let's see, in the last week, we covered the hill going up 332 where the milk trucks and feed trucks get over there in the eyes. We scraped it off this morning, so it's ready. I spent quite a bit of time with them guys, or that one guy, Scott, that was here. I've been on the phone quite a bit with another guy from Blue Bonnet about the road situation and what they're going to use, not going to use. So that's about all I've got, Judge.
Are you seeing the trash that precinct 1 is seeing?
Our trash, most of the beer cans are there for people at the spotlight.
Okay.
It's after deer season, so I guess that's really kind of picked up a little
You
bit.
can always tell when put somebody's spotlight, you find a lot of beer cans, tracks going like this, and every once in a while, a whole wad of shells.
Commissioner Parkin.
Recently just finished putting in 8 tin horns over on the Indian Springs development, back to Bladen Roads, kind of had a down week last week. Only thing is, since the last commissioners court meeting, the reclaimed dirt that we're very appreciative for, but it didn't hold up very well under wet or icy conditions. So most of those roads that were topped, we had to go back and really didn't blade them. We just scraped them to get the ruts out of them. And we're glad they did it, but it's probably not, it's sure not foolproof.
You're talking about the roads that the wind people reclaimed.
Let's say they took that dirt from where they had widened the corners and stuff and used it for their extra 4 inches of top. And
It's pretty fine material.
it was probably too fine to start with. By the time you put it down, pick it back up, move it again, you just make it fine. So it's material that we didn't have, but it's probably gonna be a problem for a while, maybe forever.
So going
Right.
forward, we probably should require new base at the end of the project.
I think
Supposed to
that
be
out
fine.
there, and you can ask Jed, that was actually ground too fine from the start. The material. You know, and I think that's right. Anytime you get a snowstorm or an ice storm, your ground kind of puffs up. It'll be interesting to see what it does when we get a rain.
They always say rocks what builds the roof.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody from the start was like, hey, man, why don't y'all learn to build a road like this? It was smooth. It was really nice. 3 days after the ice melted out, when are you gonna get out here and do something with this mess?
Those guys really, excuse me, Dale, they really they took the short route on putting that gravel down. Cause they just dumped it with those belly dumps and had a motor grader. All he did was just flatten it out some. Then they run that big roller over. And that was a quick fix.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a motor grader operator. They had one, and at noon one day, he got mad and told him to go to Thunder, and he left. And that was the end of the motor grader deal there. And I told these guys from Blue Bonnet, trying to avoid that same deal, to make this deal about 3/4 inch. You know, to ground the rock 3/4 instead of like flour they did up there. It makes for a smooth road, but don't last worth a flip.
Do they maintain the road for y'all during construction?
Yeah,
Pretty much did.
yeah. All we had to do is call them. If they had somebody available, like I said, they didn't have a motor grader out there worth flip.
They'll have opera.
Commissioner Williams?
Bladed, 5, 23, 416, and 430. As of today, they're bladed 432, the 7 Mile Road to Swinging Bridge. Had some maintenance, working on some maintenance issues. The Swinging Bridge kind of hit a hiccup with they're doing the camera system on it, and the fact that where we were bringing the electric line to that, that is for sale. And she had a buyer, and that buyer fell through, so now it's back going. We're supposed to have dig test out this week and have the line put in, the electric line, before the next buyer, hopefully. Meeting yesterday at the Ebony Community Center. They had a monthly meeting, and they're gonna meet probably in the next couple of months, several other times. And also to let everybody know that looks like I got a phone call. I think the judge got one too. We've got a subdivision, 200 acres that are looking like going in. It's going to divide it up into 7 or 8 lots. And it's out at the Ebony area. So I don't know what's going to go on there. He's doing his research right now. So 200 acres, 8 lots, not very big. So all deer hunters, all just want a little piece of land. Could be interesting. No water out there, and we're gonna put 8 lots out there side by side. So I'm glad we had the water in our subdivision ordinance type
Yes.
thing. I don't think the perk test will be a problem, but anyway, that's
Okay.
all I have.
Judge's report, we had a free COVID vaccination clinic at the senior center from 10 to 2 on Saturday. We had 2 people show up at 10 and that was it. So I think we're probably done trying to help get vaccine into the county after that performance. We've got about 885 fully vaccinated and boosted resident eligible people in the county, and about 3,700 that aren't and apparently aren't interested. So that's where we are and we're done. District Court had trial going all last week. It's still going on this week. I don't know how much longer it's going to be going on, but I expect at least a part of this week. So parking around the courthouse will be tight. Bathrooms will be crowded. If you don't have business down here, I'd recommend avoiding it. Sheriff, any guidance on how long you think it'll go?
I'm gonna say,
Yeah. They have been using this courtroom as part of the jury break area. So as soon as we clean out, they'll probably be back in business for that. That's all I've got. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any